You are listening to the Keeping It Juicy podcast.
Your main squeeze in nutrition.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for a brand new episode.
Also, don't forget to add us on Instagram and Facebook at Keeping It Juicy Podcast.
All right, we are live. Welcome back, everybody. Today is episode 89, and we have a very special guest that we are so excited to introduce to you guys today. Some of you may already be following her, so we are going to chat with her today. And today we are with Tips with Toni.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we're super excited to have you. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit of background.
Sure. So I'm a registered dietitian and online nutrition coach. I launched my business about 3 years ago. I've been doing it full time for a year and a half. And I became a registered dietitian because I personally grew up overweight. I really knew the struggles. I was teased for my weight. And I was always a really happy kid, but like the more someone kind of teases you and tells you that you're not good enough and you need to lose weight, or, you know, you're never going to get a boyfriend if you keep eating that way, like those messages really stuck with me. And it led me down some really unhealthy eating behaviors. Like I think a lot of people do when they seek out to be healthy, they think restriction, they think skipping meals, you know, not eating much, exercising excessively. And it was just a very unhealthy cycle and dynamic. And I realized at one point, I was like, if this is the way, I don't want it to be the way, because I'm really miserable. Like I have no energy. I can't focus. It's all I think about. So like there has to be a better way. So that's when I decided to go to school to become a registered dietitian. And it was really awesome because I learned so much about how to eat properly. And then anything that I learned, I applied. And I realized along the way that it's more of a journey. It's a lifestyle. It's not a one size fits all approach. It's not a, you know, quick fix. It's really just how you live your life, and that will translate into so many other areas. So it's been super rewarding, and that's why I love to work with people who were where I once was, which was I work with people with eating disorders. I probably was like borderline. I like to define it as what most people suffer with, which is actually disordered eating. There's a fine line between the two. With that being said, we all could probably use a little bit of help and assistance to learn how to fuel our bodies properly based off of the activity levels that we do, and also just our mindset and learning that, you know, being at a healthy weight is important. However, your happiness is more important. So I like to help people find that middle ground, and that's why I do what I do and how I, you know, got to where I am today.
Yeah.
Right.
I love how you said, you know, you grew up a very happy kid, and then you started going more healthy, and then you kind of became unhappy with how your life was going. And I think that's super important, even in general with everyone. Like just because you're being more healthy doesn't actually mean your quality of life has improved whatsoever. And it's the same thing with weight loss. You can get to your goal weight and still be unhappy with your body. There's so much more to it than that. So I love that you mentioned that.
And I really like, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so many people say things like, I'll be happy when I find love. I'll be happy when I get the house. I'll be happy when I get the raise. I'll be happy when I get the job. I'll be happy when I have a child. I'll be blah, 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 blah. Right. And we have to learn to be happy now. And it's not, you know, life is a journey. It's not a destination. And we have to really learn how to find joy in the mundane and the little things. And believe it or not, then the side effect of that is usually what you were striving for the whole time.
Exactly.
But that's not the point.
Exactly. Yep. I totally agree.
Right. And another thing that I really liked was the fact that you said that you went to school to become a registered dietitian because of all that happened. Because I feel like I have a similar story, and I feel like Christine had a similar story to this, because that's why we all went to school to really understand nutrition. And then we came out basically having our thoughts turned like a whole 180. So it's like mind-blowing once you receive that education, like, which goes to show like what we know versus what the average person knows is just, it just blows my mind. So I don't know.
Yeah.
No, and I forget that sometimes too. Like sometimes I catch myself, and I think this like a statement, for example, like, do you count macros? We just assume people know what macros are.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't even tell you how many times I talk about that on my story and someone messaged me and is like, what is a macro? And I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, thank you for asking. Thank you so much for reminding me that we don't know, like it's okay that you don't know. And I'm thankful that you feel comfortable asking me what that is. And
Right.
Because that term gets thrown around so often, and it can make someone feel incompetent by asking, like, hey, what is it? But it's a valid question. You know, I probably didn't have a firm understanding of it until a couple months, a year into school too. So, you know, we have to remember this is our profession. You know, we are the professionals at this, and sometimes we just need to take it back a step and get back to basics.
Right. And even in my job, like when I speak with a patient or a client, there's always someone that asks me, well, what is a protein? I'm like, oh shit.
Like,
yeah, no,
I
it's
need to
so
break
true.
it down.
It's so true. It's so true. And that's something too. You're so right. It's like I talk about how when you're building a healthy plate, we want to have all food groups present, you know, not all the time, as much as we can, keep it balanced, have a healthy carb, healthy starch, a protein, a healthy fat. And then I forget that I need to also explain what those are and not just, really the more detail, the better. Like I find that you can't really get lost in that stuff. And also too, as much as details are important, it's so simple, which people I feel like complicate nutrition.
Yes.
When it really is, it's simple. We just have to find our own version of simplicity, not somebody else's.
Absolutely.
Right. And we have like so much responsibility to really teach them that, because like if we tell a client, okay, you need to have a protein, a carb, or a fat, they don't say they don't know. Sometimes they just kind of like nod their heads and like, wait a second, do you know? Like, how can we break this down for me to understand that you understood what I just said right now?
Yeah. That's why I always ask for like examples. So
Right.
how are you going to apply this? Tell me what your breakfast will look like.
That's a really good one. I might steal that.
Right.
I might steal that actually, because it's true that you might be embarrassed to ask or not sure how to ask, or we throw these terms around so often: protein, carbs, fats, fiber. Like they might not know. And again, that's okay. That just means we have a job to do. And our job is to explain it and make it applicable and make it easy and fun too.
Right. I love doing that. Like I remember when I teach my play, I'm like, okay, well, how can you apply this to your life? And there's always someone that's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay.
We've got a little bit of work to do, and that's okay.
Right. No, we just go from there. But I feel like people don't understand how much we have to go into as nutrition professionals, and how how a lot of other people can easily miss the mark when they're trying to coach patients or clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Never assume. Wasn't that saying, if you assume, it makes you, I don't like this curse, but you know, but
well, we do.
We know what you mean.
A butt out of you and me.
Well, Toni, we talked a little bit about how you like got into nutrition. Let me ask, what did you go to college and what did you do your internship?
Sure. So I went to SUNY Oneonta. It's a college upstate New York.
Okay.
It's a great state school. They're really well known for their dietetics major. So I did 4 years there. And they had a combined master's dietetic internship program, but you had the opportunity to do it online. So although where I went to college was in New York, it was upstate New York. I got to take do my master's online and my dietetic internship where I grew up, kind of like somewhere around there, closer. So that way, when I graduated, I was more likely to get a job. And it actually worked out because I ended up, I started actually where most people think is like the best to start, which was great. And what I wanted, I actually started in an eating disorder clinic, an outpatient weight management private practice. And it was great, but then to kind of it wasn't my business, it was somebody else's business. I always knew I wanted mine, so it was a great learning experience. I absolutely loved it, but I wasn't quite done getting all of what I wanted to learn about dietetics. So I ended up getting a job at a hospital who the clinical nutrition manager where I did my internship ended up getting a job in a different hospital, and then she took me on there. So yeah, so long story short, it's like who you know. But yeah, so I got my master's in nutrition and dietetics, and that was, I've been a dietitian now for almost 7 years this October.
Wow. Oh my.
Yeah, it's been a great time. I worked everywhere, and now I just work for myself, which is probably the best.
I think that's the route a lot like to go to, just because.
What's that?
You can't beat it. I was gonna say, I think that's the route a lot of dietitians are going now too, just because you can have the biggest impact that way too.
Yeah. You really get to know people. I mean, you can formulate it however you want. I choose to do one-on-one nutrition coaching, but you could work for yourself and do nutrition education, food service stuff. I mean, there's so many things you can do.
Exactly.
But I've always, I started my blog, Tips with Toni, when I was in college, my junior year of college. So it's like almost 10 years old at this point, which is crazy. So Tips with Toni, before it was a business, was just like free nutrition information in a blog. And so I've always been a people person. I've always loved educating. So it's really nice to now like take all that information and work with someone one-on-one and help them apply it to their individual needs.
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this real quick. So, at least when I was in college, like I kind of stumbled into being a registered dietitian because I feel like a lot of programs don't do the best at letting you know which career paths you can take with nutrition until I was accidentally in it. Do you feel like that was the same thing with you, or how did that go for you? Did you already know what a registered dietitian was?
Yeah, no, I did, but not to the extent that I learned. And I always was like, I don't want to do clinical. I don't want to do clinical. I know that I want to work with people with eating disorders. Like, I know that's what I want. And then in my internship, I loved clinical. Like, I really did. And I really enjoyed, and I was such a fast learner. I think for me, dietetics, I was just a sponge because I think I loved it so much. So I loved every bit of it. So I'm not kidding you. At one point in my career, I was working at a hospital. I was working at a Head Start, so like a daycare center as their dietitian. I was working for a long-term care center. I was working like 80 plus hours a week, partly because I needed to pay bills and I was crazy. The other part was because I just love nutrition. And so I was literally working in all these areas. And then finally I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. Like I've had an experience. I was a food patient services manager in the food service department. Like I did it all. I'm like, okay, I need to stop running away from my fear. I need to just do my own thing. I have all the tools in my toolbox. I've seen it all. I know what causes disease, what prevents disease, like why people end up here. I want to be in the preventative stages, and I want to, help people really create healthier habits for a lifetime. And so it made me switch and transition to online nutrition coaching, and that's where my heart.
I think was kind of like that tipping point, like, 'cause it sounds like you thought about it for quite some time, knowing that you always wanted to start your own business. But what do you think finally like pushed you over the edge? Like, did you have imposter syndrome for a while and then you're just like, nope, I've got this, I know this, and just like went with it?
Well, I had a business coach, which you have to definitely invest in.
Highly recommend that.
Highly recommend business coaching. So I had a couple, but one in particular was a dietitian who he actually worked at a gym, and then he quit and went full time, and he started doing online nutrition coaching, and he's built his business to be very successful. So I was like, okay, I want to do what he does. So I hired him to teach me. And between him and the support of like the community of other dietitians that, were working with him, I felt like I had all the systems in place. I built my business to a place where, it could have grown, but also then my quality of life would have went down. Like I would have been, I would have had to sacrifice sleep and time with family and friends. And so I was like, okay, the reason why I can't really grow much more is because I don't have the space or energy to get on more podcasts, to reach out to potential clientele, to, get the marketing out there. But if I took that at that point, like 60 plus hours a week, that I was working for somebody else, I invested that into my business. I knew it was going to come back tenfold, and it has. And so it's been really, really awesome. So yeah, definitely don't just do it if you have no system, but if you have the support and you like know what you're doing, and if you can match your income from your full-time job, and then you're like, all right, I can do this. Like I live on one salary, I could now do it for myself.
So good to know, because I do feel like a lot of even people that Arda and I went to school with, we met each other at SDSU, are kind of going that private practice, starting their own business route. And we've been out of school, 4 years. So everyone's kind of been
Don't
dietitians
say
for
that.
maybe 3. So we're definitely like earlier in our career than you are
Right.
at this point. But a lot of people are trying to take that next step. So
Right.
you would say working with a business coach would be like the absolute best thing to do right now. Yeah.
100%.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 100%. Follow someone, invest in someone. It's like why you would hire a nutrition coach. Like the nutrition
Right.
coach knows a little bit more than you. They've been where you've been.
Mhm.
And so they're going to help guide you. And if they might not be able to help you with everything, but they'll get you to a certain point,
Right.
and then
Right.
you move on.
Right.
And you get another coach, or you do it on your own, or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, think about it. We have teachers our whole lives. If you played sports, you had coaches your whole lives. Like when you become an adult, somehow that goes away, but we still need that. We still need
Right.
direction. We need structure. We need accountability. You know, no matter what goal you're trying to achieve, whether it's finance or, you know, having a healthy relationship with a spouse or loved one, like there needs to be something to kind of keep it going.
Absolutely.
And I think coaching is helpful with that.
Absolutely. Great
Mhm.
points.
So we talked a little bit about that. I keep because I'm also Dietetics Anonymous, I want to know, like in your internship, you may not have a horror story, but what do you think was like the best points and the worst points in your internship, or do you have any specific experiences that stood out to you?
Well, so part of the program that I did was, like I said, it was an online nutrition combined master's and dietetic internship. So the cool part about that
Mhm.
was when you applied, it was actually your job was to find your preceptors.
Oh,
So pretty much that was the hardest part, like finding and aligning them. But once you did, you're almost like pretty much guaranteed because you put the work. As long as you had like a good GPA and like you were, had some, experience, you could
right.
find your preceptors. You're pretty much guaranteed to get into the internship. It's like that's like if you're gonna work that hard to like find a clinical preceptor, a community preceptor, a food service preceptor, like it was a lot of work. But part of it was we had a community health intervention project, like a CHIP, we called the CHIP project. So like instead of writing a thesis, we had that as like part of the master's program. And I had like this whole idea, and I can't remember why, but my preceptor who was going to help me with it, like it fell through. So like I had everything all like scheduled and ready and together. And then I had to change my entire CHIP project, like at the last half of the like program. And
Oh
like
my
if you don't do your CHIP
gosh.
project, like how are you going to finish it?
Right.
So anyways, I ended up had to switch it. I wanted to do sports nutrition as my like community focus, and I was going to work with my old high school, and then it fell through. And so I ended up switching to like I did like women in breastfeeding and like low income communities, and kind of if in fact it's an effective strategy to help educate them, or if not. And it was not what I wanted to do. As you can
Right.
see, I'm not like super passionate about that topic, but I guess that was probably like the like downside to it. But the plus
Right.
side, like I said, was honestly finding that I love all the fields that a dietitian can be in. Like they can do
Right.
so many things, and I loved that I could see myself doing any of them. It made me feel confident that I had a lot of opportunity and could work
Mhm.
wherever. And so yeah, that was probably the plus side to it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of programs are starting to go towards that online route as well too, because my program, which is now completely online, but when I went, it was like half online, half not online. So
The
I did
internship portion?
the internship.
Oh.
So, okay, the internship I had to go in, but like I also did my master's at the same time, similar to you. And half of that was I had to bust my ass to campus, or half of it was online. So I feel like we're seeing a bigger trend towards that, especially with COVID going on. I don't
Yeah.
even know,
Yeah.
like, especially with COVID going on, like I don't know. I don't even know how to relate to that, but I feel like it's also a good thing too, especially since a lot of, at least the dietitians that I know, sometimes it's like a second career for them, or they already
Yeah.
have families or
A
anything.
lot of moms. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
a lot of moms do it because it ends up, they're right. They're like, they have this whole other career and they don't feel fulfilled. So they switch to
Right.
dietetics. And it's great for those to have it online for sure, because
Right.
then it allows them the flexibility to sign in when they want, do their assignments when they want, versus like they have to be at a certain place at a certain time.
Right.
I
Right.
So
love
yeah, for sure.
so much. That's
Me
the
too.
why I didn't go, because I'm in my master's right now, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna spend an hour in traffic to get to
Mhm.
campus, then park, then spend
Mhm.
30 minutes walking to campus, then sitting in class for another 45 minutes to 3 hours,
Yeah.
and then do it all over again just to
And
go
you could,
home and
yeah,
study. Like,
Yeah.
no.
you could study in that time that you would, or you're
Exactly.
commuting.
Exactly.
Exactly. I love online, so I think
Yeah.
it's great, and hopefully, I'm sure COVID is gonna kind of give other programs that push to be like, okay, we
Right.
actually can do this online. Let's make it more of a permanent thing. So silver lining.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
They have PhDs online. I'm just throwing that out there. Just
Oh
Yes.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. That was
so
actually something I was thinking of. I was like, do I get my PhD? I kept like, just, we run away from what we need, like the things that we fear. I'm like, I really need my own business. I know this, but I was like, or I can get a PhD. And I'm like, nope.
Just fluff it.
do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you're just trying to make other things up. Yeah.
Oh, like, no, oh, good. But it's so funny you say that. I was thinking about that on my walk today, because like, those advertisements come in, and I remember
right.
there was an advertisement for like University of Phoenix. You can get your PhD online, and they're like, we've always been doing this. We've been doing this before the pandemic. And I remember researching it, being like, maybe I'll go this route. And it's like, no. That's great if you do. For me, it's just like, I was like, that's just stalling. I'm like, already know so much more than the average person. Like,
Right.
I don't need more knowledge. If I want more knowledge, I can go back, but I definitely don't need it. Going back to what you were saying before about like the imposter syndrome, like we could tell ourselves a bazillion lies.
Oh, yeah.
And if we let ourselves, we'll believe them.
Right.
I learned from that.
Yeah. We are always our own worst enemy.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So Toni, do you feel like your nutrition policy or your philosophy has changed like over the years? Like, what was it before compared to now?
Oh God, it's transitioned so much. I think it has to do with like, as much as we try not to be biased, I feel like our personal experiences really do influence how we coach and teach. And I think, I was always true to myself, so I will say that. So it's not like I was ever lying. I was just, this is what I knew at one point, and then I knew more at this point, and now I know the most at this point, but I'll learn more in 5 or 10 years from now. So I don't like regret anything, but I kind of just remember myself being more of like, just do it, like eat healthy, cook your veggies, like work out. And I was like, everyone always told me I was like motivating and inspiring, but I was never really helping people really understand maybe why they don't feel like moving, like what it is that's physically holding them back, and never really addressing the fact that maybe someone who's struggling with their weight and emotional eating is struggling from trauma, anxiety, depression. Like, it's so much deeper than the surface, and it's not that easy. And I think because, think about it, my struggle started when I was like 14 years old, and I worked through them, and I had kind of bumps throughout the way. But after a certain point, like, it was, when you work on something for 10 years, you're really good at it. So I kind of like lost touch with like how hard it is to form a new habit. And I felt like I maybe was a little insensitive at times. I know people wouldn't tell me that, but I feel like that is inside. I know that now I'm a lot more compassionate. And I think it's because I'm more compassionate with myself. I used to be super hard on myself, and I used to like work out. I always worked out a lot. I always played sports, but it was a lot. And I almost like, I don't know. I just feel like I allowed that to maybe persuade other people into thinking that those were the only things that mattered. But now I'm realizing that there's just so much more to life that matters. And it, if I want to, I don't know. I feel like now I'm more so, I really address like the core issues that people are dealing with rather than just like the surface stuff. So the message hasn't changed too much. I think just the way I deliver it has changed.
Yeah, the delivery of it. And I like that you said, we all kind of have our own biases, and that kind of comes through in how we coach and counsel people. And to an extent, that can actually be a really good thing too, because we want diversity in this field, and we want different approaches to different things. And we want everyone to kind of have someone in the field that they can go to, not just the stereotypical dietitian. Like, we want these different personalities and personas to be available. So it's a good thing that our past experiences and philosophies come to the forefront when we're helping somebody, and we need that diversity too. And it does change over time, absolutely. And the more compassionate you are with yourself, the more that's going to shine through to who you're working with too.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Oh man, that was a heavy topic right there.
It needs to happen though. It needs to happen.
So let's say you said you started the blog. Did the podcast just like come about from there, or like how? I feel like everyone's getting in the podcast game, so I'm just wondering.
Yeah. So that's the thing with blogging. You're kind of stay top of mind. I always did it out of the passion of my heart, just like wanting to motivate and inspire and show people and, teach, because I was so tired of the blog. Started because I was so tired of, people doing all the quick fixes and the fad diets and the detoxes. And honestly, I've come to learn that that's never changing and that's never going away. And I can't bash them, put it down. It's not my character. It doesn't feel right to me. I can just be a reliable resource and trust people will grow to learn that, and to hopefully just block that out and listen to me and people like me, like you guys, or like other, dietitians that I'm really close with that have a very similar understanding of the messaging of like, there's not one size fits all. And you really have to teach people and treat people like you would want to be treated, and with compassion and understanding, and gently gently like motivate them towards just like healthier living. Rather than be like, do this, and if you don't, you are a failure, because that's really the messaging that half of these messages are out there for. So anyways, I digress. So the blog was just always something I've always done. I actually started on YouTube, and then Instagram became out, so I switched to Instagram, and then someone had reached out to me. Actually, it was my cousin's now husband, at the time boyfriend, his friend had a podcast. There were two guys. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Gym Wits podcast. It's pretty popular. So it's my friend, he's not my friend, Ryan. He's the co-host. He's a personal trainer. And then his friend Justin was like your everyday average Joe. And they had a really successful podcast, and they were looking for a dietitian. At first, it was just to be a guest. And so I went on for one episode, and they're like, hey, we really like that. We got really good feedback. Would you want to be a third co-host? And I was like, sure. So that was like 3 or 4 years ago. And we got a lot of great feedback. The podcast grew. And then I eventually was like, you know what? I think I want my own. And they helped me create my own. And now I co-host with them, and then I have my own.
Oh, awesome.
That's how it came about. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I do both. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So how do you handle like Instagram with social media fatigue? I feel like I get that sometimes.
So I've learned that so I used to feel like I had to post every single day. And I think when you're first starting out, I think it's good to just, like I said, stay top of mind. I stayed top of mind for 10 years. Like, I was always posting something. I was always showing my workout, showing my food. It's definitely changed now. I think because my page is more well known, and I have the podcast, and I have the following, and I have the clients and all that stuff. I don't feel pressure to post every day, especially too because stories are so popular. So as long as you're on your stories and you're showing and you're engaging, that's fine. And it then takes the pressure off to feel like I have to write like this fancy caption. Fortunately, I actually, going back to why investing in coaches is important, I'm working with a writing coach because he's helping me write my book. And that helps me to just like, as I'm writing the book, I'll take like, oh wow, this could be a really great Instagram caption, or I'll write the Instagram caption, and it'll help me write the book. And like, it's really great. And I don't feel pressure to like post every day. I just feel actually what I'm working on now is quality. So I might post like 3 to 4 times a week, but the caption or the content that I'm putting out is really, really good, rather than before I was just like put something out there. Like, done's better than perfect. That's very true in the beginning. But as you start to build a following and stuff, I don't think it's actually necessary for you to have to like technically post every single day. I think just using it for, you know, and because if it's not genuine, I think people will feel that, and it's kind of like a waste. So I rather like sit on it for a little bit and like the next day really let it marinate and decide like, okay, this is what I was trying to say, and I just put that out there. Yeah.
Definitely. So you have a book coming out, right? Or you're in the process of writing it?
I'm in the process of writing it. Yeah. Back in February. Yeah. So back in February, I did my very first TED Talk, which is officially available.
I was just watching that.
Very cool.
So it was really awesome. It's something I've always dreamed of doing. I really always loved TED Talks. And I've always said, I'm going to do one. I'm totally going to do one. And I did, which was awesome. And I remember when I was creating the talk, you only had, for every TED Talk's different. For mine, I only had 8 minutes. I had a lot to say in 8 minutes. It was really hard to like narrow it down. So then I was like, I literally said to myself, I was on a walk and I'm like, oh my God, this could be a book. Like, how am I going to write? How am I going to write? How am I going to think of something to share everything I want to say in 8 minutes? And then I was like, oh my God, it could be a book. And so then I was like, okay, I really have no idea what this looks like. I have no idea how difficult this is going to be, but I know someone who my writing coach, John Romanello, who at that point wasn't my coach. I just knew him from coaching my coach with writing skills and blah, blah, blah. And I called him and I'm like, just like, what would this look like? Like, if we were to work together, like, if you were going to help me write this book, like, what would this look like? And he's like, well, we would do this, 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 this. We probably need to work together for at least 6 months and blah, blah, blah. And it'd be this much. And I'm like, all right, screw it. Let's do it. Right. And now I know I'm like writing a book. And so that was a year ago already. And then I got news that I hadn't even had booked the talk yet. I was just applying. I was like, I just have this vision. I know I'm going to do this talk, and I don't feel like that's going to help it's going to be a part of my message, but it's not going to get all of my message out there. And so then he actually helped me formulate the talk a little bit so it aligned with the book. Right. So we spent time on that. And so now we're really in like the end stages of the book. Nice. Took a lot longer than I had intended or I wanted it to, but you can't really rush this stuff.
Exactly. You want it to be well done and get the message across properly. That's so cool.
So I'm really excited for it.
Would you say writing a book is like harder than you thought it would be?
Hardest thing. Okay. Hardest thing in my life. Hardest thing in my life.
Harder than school, dietetic internship. Okay.
Literally, don't do it. Just don't. No, I'm kidding. Do it. No, it's so funny because I say because it's hard too. I have full-time thrive. Like I have a really great business. I'm very grateful for it, right? But it's like I have to keep that moving because I have to pay my bills, right? And then it's like, but I'm also writing this book. And so what I've decided, everyone says you should like write every day, but for me, it's actually better. I like doing my business basically like during the week or like Monday through Friday, and then like I write like Friday through Monday. Like that's how it just formulates in my head. Point being, every time I sit down, I have to like write. I never procrastinate. I'm very diligent. I'm very hardworking. I'm really not someone who just like does things whatever. With writing the book, I do. And so my boyfriend's like, he'll like catch me like doing dishes and like cleaning and like on the weekends, and he's like, are you supposed to be doing something? And I'm like, no. He's like, you're not supposed to be writing your book? I'm like, well, yeah. And then he'll basically like he's like, all right, go write your book. And I'll be like, okay, but let me just tell you that if I ever say I want to write a book again, say no. Just tell me no. Like, don't let me do the one. Stop me. Don't let me write a book ever again. Like that is it.
So funny.
Okay, I'm done.
It's
really hard. You know, it's going to be really great. Honestly, it's going to be really great.
It's just a really challenging experience. And it's like,
well, because it's not something I'm, you know, when you ask like dietetics, it's hard, but I also like, I was always good at math and science. I was never brilliant at it, but I was like halfway decent at it. Writing, like I was okay with, and I only think I got good because I wrote like my blog posts and stuff. But it's so different. Like writing a Instagram caption and writing a book are not the same.
No, it's definitely not.
Like it's so hard. But I mean, I'm sure once it's done, I'll have a lot of great stories. And like, I mean, even now I can talk about the parallels between like writing a book and like your weight loss journey. And like, I forget, like for me, as much as, you know, weight loss was challenging, I was always athletic, but imagine now trying to get someone to commit to healthier living and exercising more. And they don't know, they've never played a sport. They don't feel comfortable running. Like it's going to be a lot harder for them. They'll do it eventually. They'll get better at it eventually. But it's a lot harder. And that's how I felt with writing. Like for me, like it's just not, it was never like my forte, you know?
Right.
So, and now.
Right. No.
Humbling experience to have to be a beginner again at something because, you know, as nutrition professionals, like we're the professionals. So we kind of guide, you know, our clients and patients through this nutrition world. So to have to be put back at square one and be like, nope, you're the beginner again, experience that. It gives you a little bit of a reality check. And I think that's really good for us to be able to know, like, okay, we have to be beginners at something again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely making me stronger, wiser, like I've never, you know, amazing. It really has been, it's been a great experience. So it's like, I'm joking, but I'm not joking because I don't know if I could ever write another one, but like, but like, it's been really great. But you know, what's crazy? I mean, people are already like, when's your next TED Talk? And I'm like, can we just like, no, I don't know if I'm ever going to do another TED Talk. Can we be okay with one of them?
Right.
Like, I think I'm good. Like maybe in the future, but like, I don't know. That's also, I feel like, conditioned that we always have to keep going and striving and doing more and doing more. But it's like, can we just celebrate and embrace the fact, like the one thing first, like sit in it? And I've always been that overachiever. And so now I'm really learning that like, I don't want to just do something just to say that I did it and check it off. Like I really want it to mean something. I want to have purpose behind it. And that's where, you know, that's kind of what I mean. Like, don't let me write another book unless it's like something that I need to do. Like this I need to do. This I need to do. Because people really need this book. Really, really need it.
Have another big topic or something that you need to say. You're just writing for the sake of writing. And if you're enjoying it, it's not going to be something meaningful and more value.
Yeah, like goes back to just writing an Instagram caption or posting something just to post it. It's like people are going to sense that it's not as good as like the one that you really spent some time on.
Definitely.
Right. So the motto of today's podcast for you is screw it, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Like that's what I got.
I love it. Yeah, no, it really is like, it's not easy, but it's always worth it. Those things that are really not easy really are always worth it.
Always. So what else do you see for like tips with Toni in the future?
It's a good question. I wanted to do I really wanted this year, it's why I also did the TED Talk, was my year for like public speaking.
Okay.
But because of all these events not being in person, I have to pivot a little bit. So I'm actually at this place where I'm not sure. I'm at this point where I have the maximum amount of clients that I want to take on if I also want to like preserve my energy to do things like write the book and be on podcasts and be a podcast host and all that stuff. So most people, I think from this point, they might go to like group coaching. I haven't really quite decided that yet. It's not really on my heart right now. It might come to me, but right now it's not really there. So, I'm not sure. I would normally have told you like public speaking.
Right.
I just don't know what that looks like for 2020 or 2021, you know? I
think a lot of us are in that boat where we had our head set on this is how 2020 can go. It didn't go that way, and that's
no, it did not.
No, it did not. It really didn't. You know, the crazy thing, when I started the blog, I also told myself I wanted my own talk show, and like I'm really serious about it. I really want my own talk show as a dietitian. We have doctors with talk shows. We have, just
thank you for
people on talk shows. I really want my own. And so, you know, that was a little bit further.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah. I said, there's not one, is there?
There's not.
No,
one.
There's none.
And so that's something that I really, really want. And so I'm thinking, I thought it was going to be public speaking career then that, but I'm thinking maybe now I'm just going to create my own, it's not, I don't think it'll have to be what I envisioned, which would be like on ABC or CBS or something.
Right.
It might be on, a YouTube channel that does really well, that is now the new form of TV for most people anyway.
Right, honestly.
So that might be the next thing I focus on.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because I always see doctors do like nutrition advice, and I'm just looking over like,
yeah,
we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
Are we doing this right now?
Yeah, it's frustrating. But that's why I said like earlier, we can't beat them. We got to join them, right? So we got to just. I was on the Dr. Oz show like 4 times actually, and yeah, I met him because I'm in New York, and they taped in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Very cool.
it was a really cool experience, and it was great to like be in that position. So it was a respectable, but unfortunately he doesn't always stay within his scope. So we just have to do our best to be a little bit louder.
When you are in those positions and you are invited to be on the show, you just have to make sure that you're giving the best advice as possible.
Exactly.
So that, the viewer can get the best information.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. Yeah.
Join them. Just try to do
Yeah, exactly.
So Toni, in your eye, so a little bit switching gears a little bit, what would your ideal client be?
My ideal client is the people I work with every day. They're magical. They're amazing. They, it's unfortunately they've all come to me as like a last resort. They've done every diet that you can possibly imagine. They've constantly restricted, then overate. They're really successful in their lives. They're either teachers or moms or like really great, wives and family. They work, they do all the things, but this is like they're always obsessed and worried and focused on what they should or should not eat, and they can like get it together, but then they go off track, and it's just like this vicious cycle. And I love working with them because they have come to me with a decision that they're done with that stuff. They realize the quick fixes don't work. They're tired of the cycle. And so at first it's always a challenge to pull them out of that, but I love seeing the transformation. I love helping them realize that, they can live every life feeling happy and confident and good in their skin.
Right.
And, there's more to life than what you eat. And,
absolutely,
it's important, but like there's just so much more to it. So it's like, let's just figure that stuff out so you can enjoy your life. And those are my favorite clients.
The diet cycle is hard to break. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And like not to turn this into like a morbid type of topic, but I heard a quote somewhere, like, if you're at a person's funeral, you're not going to remember them for their weight. You're going to remember them for the type of person they are, what they've done, and just their overall character, and not if they were overweight or skinny or any of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the same thing with how, I don't know if you heard about Chadwick passing away, and before he had passed away, he had lost a lot of weight. People were making a lot of comments, but they know what was going on behind the scenes. Like,
which is why people need to stop commenting on other people's weights.
Yes.
Can we just make a blanket statement? Stop doing that. You never know what's going on with that person.
Exactly.
And people
to comment on someone's body. Like it
really is just not.
Like, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, you don't. If someone has like a really big, like if someone has like a facial feature that doesn't look like everybody else's or something, you like almost like know not to comment on that, right?
Maybe they were in a car accident. Maybe they were, something happened when they were a baby. Like you don't know, but you should have that same approach to someone's body. Like you don't know.
Right.
Yeah, and people are glorified. Like one of my more recent clients, it's the saddest story ever. She, oh God. When she gave birth to her daughter, there were complications, and she couldn't even hold her daughter for like a month because she was in the hospital, almost didn't make it, had to get an emergency hysterectomy, lost 100 pounds in like months because she was so sick, whatever. I don't want to give too much information, whatever. Right. She was not well. She was her life, she was so upset, so depressed. She, she had oh god, oh my god, postpartum depression.
Mhm.
So it was just like not an enjoyable experience for her at all, and she was getting glorified by how much weight she lost, and people were asking her how she did it. She's like, do you really want to know? I've been in the hospital, I've been sick, I like haven't been able to hold my daughter, like, so people, it's
like,
just
it's
so,
not a good thing.
it's not a good thing. Just because someone loses weight, it doesn't always mean it's for good, healthy reasons. It puts the pressure on them. Now it's like this is what you want. Like it's just it's so wrong on so many levels.
Right.
And then if someone gains weight, they're like looked down upon, but you don't know if this person's struggling with, had an eating disorder, and now they're finally okay with no longer restricting their intake, and this is where their body naturally falls when they stop being so obsessive over their food, and they're getting criticized for it. But meanwhile, they're actually so much healthier.
Right.
There's just so many things that people really need to just stop commenting on people's weights. It's just very inappropriate.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've been in this profession for a while. Do you feel like those comments over the years, do you feel like they've gotten better? Like there's been more awareness? Like have you seen us go in the right direction? Or kind of like the commercial diet industry? It's like those quick fixes aren't going away, so we just have to learn to be okay with them. Do you feel like the whole body image comments are getting better?
I mean, I think they're getting there. I don't think they're there yet. I think that with like body positive movement, healthy at every size movement, I think there's some dietitians that are doing a much better job speaking up about these things. So I definitely think that we are getting a little bit louder and helping people to recognize like it's not okay to comment on someone's weight, like, and I think it's getting better in that sense. But like the fact that like it still exists and people are still saying it and all that, I don't know if that's really gotten better. I just think we've kind of gotten better on the defensive end, if that makes sense.
Right.
I see what you're
I always get appalled as to how early everything really starts. Like those comments, like even I remember when I went to school in New Jersey, like for example, and I would be called a badass, and I'd be like, what the, like looking back at it, I think I was like 10 years old, but like the fact that things, like I'm very puzzled as to how comments can start that early. Like granted, like we don't want to put all the blame on the parents, but it's just something to consider along with the internet and other things along those lines. Like it just blows my mind that happens.
Yeah, that unfortunately we live in a society where image is something that is, I think, overemphasized as if it matters, forgetting about like the person as a whole. And so it comes from everywhere. It comes from parents, it comes from grandparents, it comes from aunts, it comes from uncles, it comes from friends, family members, it comes from just people at coworkers, it comes from peers at school. It's everywhere. And I think the only thing we can really do is teach people to realize like your opinion of you is what matters the most, and your body size is literally the least interesting thing about you.
Exactly.
Like there's like, okay, it changes, it's your outer shell, but like who you are as a person, that's who truly matters.
Right.
Are you loyal? Are you kind? Are you generous? Are you hardworking? Are you someone who takes care of yourself and takes care of others? Like there's so many other better qualities that what you look like doesn't determine any of those things.
Be the least interesting thing about you.
Really, least interesting thing.
Our society, it doesn't work that way. I do think we're kind of shifting that a little bit, but there's so much room for.
We're shifting, but we're never going to be done. No. We're never going to be done.
No.
There's.
And the thing is, like, people also, I feel like we always forget to account for culture too, because every single culture like views things completely differently. Like if you have a heavier set body, that's beautiful in one culture. If you in another culture, if you're thin as a stick, that's beautiful. But like there's so, like living in America and having all those cultures come together, it just like do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if you look back in history, like the ideal body, and I'm putting that in quotes, was really based off of like the image that was popular back then. So like in times with like Marilyn Monroe, that was the body image people were going for. Today, I would consider now it's like the Kardashians.
Oh,
That's where people are sort of going for, right?
Right.
Like, so there's like, it really is reflective of what you're being taught in the media. That's what I talk about in my book, and a little bit in the talk, but mostly in the book. But basically, just we're being constantly bombarded with messages. In my book, I talk about how, you know, I remember sitting, my mom, like I would go to the hair salon with my mom, and she'd be getting like her hair, her nails, and all that stuff done. And I'd be flipping through magazines, and like the cover of these magazines, everything, every single cover, if you look back, I grew up in the 90s, if you look back on like Teen People, all of them were like basically people like Britney Spears, like certain idols that we looked up to, musicians, all that stuff, totally photoshopped, but that's for another part, you know, wearing like, you know, risky sort of clothing. And then the titles on all of them were like, you know, different hairstyles, ways to change your clothes, and ways to change your look, fat loss tips, like how to get the perfect date. And that's why we are always trying to strive for approval and changing our image and changing our look. And we're being told from a very young age that we need to do that if we don't do that, we'll be lonely, we won't make friends, we won't be getting in a relationship. You know, these are all the things that we've been taught from a very very young age. So it takes time to unlearn those things, especially because as kids we're sponges. Like that's when we're literally soaking up everything and anything. So whatever we see is going to really affect us more so than I think in the future. As you get older, you kind of learn how to, you know, pick and choose what to expose yourself to. As a kid, you don't really get to choose that. It's literally just what you see.
What's given to you and what you take, and you don't think much otherwise about it until you're older and can conceptualize like, oh wait, maybe that was actually kind of damaging to me.
Right. And the fact that we actually live in a very patriarchal society doesn't help either. Like basically what the ideal woman or woman should do or be is basically defined on the premise of what men want, and that's not realistic. It never is, and it never will be. Like even like me and Christine have talked about this before in previous episodes, but we talked about how a lot of the major diets that we see out in the market, a lot of them are founded by just our thin white males. Like that's just how it is, and that's very frustrating to hear. Like even the keto
all
diet.
these diets marketed towards women who, like we even mentioned this episode, can be pretty to an extent damaging on metabolism and just how you view food in general, are all kind of owned and created by thin white men. And it's like that's not who should be guiding us. Like, not that they're uneducated, but that shouldn't be who's calling the shots of our diet industry. Like that's just
that's diet culture in a nutshell, though. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so wrong. It's so wrong. But yeah, I mean, we just got to keep putting out positive messages, showing people, you know, how that's not an effective way of doing things. And, you know, well, you guys do a really great job. So I think it's just like having people like you and other RDs in the industry really speaking up against this stuff and really talking about it, and then providing solutions at the same time.
Right.
And yourself. I can't wait to read your book. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Thank you.
Yes.
I can't wait for it to be over.
When are you kind of anticipating that right now?
Hopefully by the end of this year. So I'm basically at the point where I'm just like going through all the chapters and rereading and editing and adding, and you know, it's all that. So
making sure it's perfect.
Yeah, so within the next 3 months it should be really done, and then we have to do like the, you know, getting the cover and the publishing, like all that stuff.
Right.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Cool. Well, I can't wait to read it.
So
I will send you guys a copy when I get it. I have a list of every podcast I've ever been on that's let me talk about the book. I'm just gonna send them a book.
I can't
we will appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
other questions. Arda, do you have any other questions?
I have a silly one, but Christine's looking at me because I always have something stupid to say. But
Make it fun. I love it.
Okay, so I consider myself to be a type B dietitian. Do you
Ooh.
consider yourself to be a type A or type B?
And I be like, whatever AB is, that's me. Like, I'm in the middle of that. I am I have type A qualities, but I am not super type A, because I've noticed that for me, and also too with my nutrition, that got me in trouble. Can be slightly perfectionistic, and to be an entrepreneur, you can't do that.
No.
You'll be stuck forever. You'll never grow.
Unnecessary.
Yeah. So I would say I'm more type. I used to be type A. I'm more type B, but I still have type A qualities and tendencies. That was a great question, though. And yeah,
I just like to ask that because people have this stereotype that all dietitians are like type A, and I'm like, not me.
Yeah, no, I'm probably more type B. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. That was a great question. I love that.
Well, we definitely loved having you here, Toni. Like, I feel like we had some great quality content. I feel like our audience is going to love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been absolutely wonderful. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, you guys, we're just going to close out the episode, and I'm going to close it out the same way I usually do. So, don't touch anybody. Don't let anybody touch you, because coronavirus is still happening. So please just stay safe. Stay safe, and we will see you in the next episode.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Did we do it? Did we stop it? Oh.
Thanks for listening to the Keeping It Juicy podcast.
Your main squeeze in nutrition.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for a brand new episode.
Also, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Keeping It Juicy Podcast.
We'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a review.
5 stars, no less.
On whatever platform you're listening to, or send us an email at keepingitjuicypodcast@gmail.com.
Or if you have any topics you'd like for us to touch upon, shoot us an email. Until next time, don't do anything that I wouldn't do.